Yes, yes. Hello, boys. Welcome to the match review for the fixture that was held on the 1st of April. Not April Fool's Day, not an April Fool's Day joke between Grange and Morton City Excelsior. Quick rundown from the stats. Obviously, the match result was 2-all. We had Danny Lloyd opening scoring with a well executed finish in the 11th minute. Excelsior then scored two goals, one either side of half time. 30 in the 36th minute, they basically capitalised on what was basically a tired midfield. We will cover that goal. And then in the 71st, I felt they scored very much against the run of play um, from a transitional moment, which allowed them to long ball. And once again, it was a pretty good finish, if we're being completely honest. Before we managed to equalise in the 79th minute through Mayel and a well taken free kick. The possession stats surprise me. Look, I have to say that I'm never entirely convinced with the VO stats because it states that the possession was 49 to 51 in favour of Excelsior. And that may well have been true, but what is also relevant is that we let rip 12 shots. We had 12 attempts on goal according to these stats, where we achieved 10 shots compared to Excelsior's 8 and 6. I do feel that that was representative of the game. We we controlled the ball. We managed the field position. I personally felt that their opportunities came from either a turnover in the first half or just bombing it up, bombing it forward. We'll talk about it in the video shortly, but if they could get the ball to about midway along their halfway, then all of a sudden they were within range of putting a long ball through that could threaten us. If they were kicking from basically their own 18-yard blocks, they just kind of lacked the range. Anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to the videos. We won four corners to their two. We were awarded 19 free kicks to nine. Like I said, don't. I think they're a little bit more like a rugby league side that's decided they're too soft for rugby league, so they'll go play football. They've got some very good players in there though, sprinkled throughout that squad. They got 32 throws compared to our 23. I don't know whether or not that has a huge bearing. I think that's just attacking options gone wrong. They committed 19 fouls to six, which goes to my earlier point about physicality, and they let loose 209 passes. I think a lot of that's just moving it laterally at the back. In terms of possession minutes, they were fairly even in terms of the actual possession in on the ball. I would like to see that statistic higher for us. And in terms of possession one, that was 167 to 175, which is not really surprising if you decide you want to play a kind of end-to-end style of football, which we did. There were passages of this game where we basically continued going up the middle, trying to go through what I perceive as the strongest part of their team, and playing into their hands, as opposed to going using the width and playing around them or through the other half of the central channel. That's where we found our most joy. And if you watch back the fixture, you'll definitely see that. So if we roll back to our preparation video and what our focuses were, what we were going to talk about, there's a couple of things. One, what I think we have to talk about, continue to talk about, is managing those transitional moments. That's where we concede goals. Both of the goals that we conceded on Wednesday night were from transitional moments. Once again, we will talk about them in the video. In fact, you know what? Let's talk about that now. Because if we go to what was their first goal was 38-49. So I'll mix it up a tiny bit. So 38-49, honestly, I thought we had pretty good control of them. They've got some boys up front. They're quite a handful. Very physical, got, more than a little bit of technical ability. So they were going through a period of sustained momentum, and that can happen in a game as you have different players cycle on and off the pitch. Okay, so this is the ball, goes to Max. Or is it? Let's roll it through. So we'll roll it through. So bombs it up. This guy's going to have a shot. Not do much with it. Okay, so Grigsy wins the ball. Now this is where it starts to break down. If we have a look at the distribution, Max has got a lot of space, although not a lot of energy there. I think something that I as a coach need to look at is some of our midfielders have they're just lacking a little bit of engine, or we push them too far. So if we have a look, Grigsy's there now. Max, you need to be committing to the ball there. You're kind of ball watching. So really, what we need you doing, mate, is we need you coming in. So we need you coming in to make sure of that space, okay? Because we're asking a fair bit of Grigsy. In fairness, though, I mean, he has two passing options and one player in front of him. So if we have a look at those options, like, you've got this guy here, Max, you're unmarked. We've got this guy here. So in reality, Grigsy, if you can drive, I felt you were a little bit too direct there. So yes, you've got Max, but if you drive, you can then engage this player, or he can keep running backwards if he wants. Um, but if you engage him, you can then give yourself a passing option either side. So you can either pass out to the wide to Hayden, or things might have opened up more for Max. But if we have a look at how it unfolds, and I felt this was just a tired pass. Okay. So you've not hit the pass. Max, you need to be coming to the ball. You've allowed that to get cut out, so that's not ideal. I think by this stage, Max and Grigsy were a bit weary. Now Grigsy comes over. Max, you're still sort of ball watching. You need to be recovering and dropping back in to help out. Still ball watching, Max. Still walking. This guy beats Ollie, and now we have a problem because our back four are there, and they've got three players here in the middle of pit at the top of our attacking third. But through Grigsy's still chasing the ball. Max is still walking. Benji's tracking back from number 10. Still going. Now, the centre backs aren't really doing much. By this point in time, Zach, you need to be coming across because we've got you, Zach Mason. You need to be coming across and getting engaged here because you are also ball watching. So there's a lot of tired bodies there, but the last 5 to 10 minutes of the half, that's where a lot of stuff happens, particularly if you're not involved and not engaged. So Grigsy is still doggedly trying to recover the ball. Still get now now Zach is engaged, but by this time, the guy is actually coming towards Isaac. You're probably paying too much attention to the ball, not enough to your man. Francis, you probably need to be coming in aware of the man on your shoulder. He comes over, so he's just dribbled right through us all. Mick, I don't think your positioning's ideal. There's no need for you to be on like right on the post. You are right on the post. Um, your positioning, I would suggest, rather than being right on the post, because it's not as though the ball's coming from out wide. You probably need to be, if you think of your little triangles, you probably need to be around about here and either make him try to beat you at your far post, but you take out most of the goals. Right now, you're giving him 80% of the goal to shoot at. So bang, and he just obliges by hitting into that. So so there's how things broke down, came down from just some loose passes in the middle of the pitch and not tracking back. Like I said, I probably had some people out on the pitch for a bit longer than what they could have been. So yeah, disappointing because I thought we'd played a very good half. We'd got the early goal. We were 5 minutes out from the boat break when we could have had a breather. So that was unfortunate. So that's an example of transitional moments going against us, especially in the middle of the pitch. We need to be really careful of nothing balls into the middle of the pitch because turnovers in the middle of the pitch are very dangerous. Turnovers out on the wing are less dangerous because players have more time to come back because it's a less direct route to goal. So what we will do now, because I like to go with some negatives and then track our way back to some positives. So we'll go back to 1206, which is where I was going to start, but I decided to just mix it up a bit because that's what I do. It's just how I roll, boys. So 1206. All right. So there's Mayel. So the point I wanted to make from this was scan more to create a better pass. In this situation, um, so we've got the winger. The winger effectively has three players on him. These white lines aren't coming up as well as I'd like. But the winger effectively has three players on him. The attacking option here is Danny, who's trying to make this run through to here. Give me an arrow, would you? There you go. So this is the run. So Mael, whether you dribble or whether you swap feet and pass, which I'm not sure you could. I think you've got a bit too much pressure on you. But this is the angle. So what we need to be doing is trying to get to a position where we can square it for Danny to try to get through and onto the ball. Either that or the other option that you do have would be to check out, and then pass the ball back to Luke. So Luke could move to here. So Luke runs over here. You pass the ball to Luke, and then you reposition. So you then run out wider, or you could just stay where you are more central, but we move them around a bit. Okay. So that's their options. Instead, the option that was taken was to dribble, which is fine. But of course, three players, it's tough to dribble through three players. By that time, the defender's come across and he's got in between Danny and the goals. So the opportunity to find Danny is lost. And possession. For your part, Luke Payne, you probably need to be more involved. You need to be getting further forward to be involved in that play. And we've sort of turned it over. But if we go to 3908. No, 1440. There we go. It's got to go through my notes. Da, da, da. So this is the build up to the goal, our goal, where we open the scoring. Okay, so we'll go back a little bit further than this because this hasn't quite captured the moment of transition. Okay, so here we are. So we've got the ball, they've got the ball. So they are now in position. They are now in possession and they have options. They go forward. How's he off? Kalen's special skill being offside. Okay. So what we've had there is we've had a transition because the ball's gone to Mick. Mick kicks it into the middle of the midfield. I'll talk about kicking into the middle of the midfield shortly. But what it does is it transitions. So they transition from being in an attacking shape and going forward to all of a sudden they got to stop and come back, which means you get this big gap between their back line and their midfield. You can see their backs are not even close to in position. Good ball from Riley, goes over to find Will. Now notice the way they're lined up. Okay, this is something I really want to point out because I've talked about it before. One defender, two defender, three defender, four, and a defensive midfielder tracking back. If you then compare that to Mael's on the far post, we've got Danny here and we've got Will driving. But what I wanted to highlight, okay, I might use a yellow line. Hopefully that will be visible. And I'll use an arrow here. Have a look at how staggered their line is. Okay. And what that creates is the opportunity for us to put diagonal passes through. Okay. Because if they're a straight line, it's harder to pass diagonally through their line. And if we watch Will get through. Now, at this point in time, it starts to open up. Danny pauses. Mael's at the far post, so he's got the goal at his mercy if the ball comes through. Now Danny's waiting. Notice the defenders, they've still got this staggered line. Okay. See, they're staggered. They're all out of sync. Will squares it and Danny totally clinically finishes that. Really good finish, Danny. So the point of the story is that disorganization in their back line comes about because they're transitioning from one shape to the other. They're more focused on the ball, they're more focused on defending, and they haven't got organized. The same thing works against us. All right. So now we'll go forward to 80, yeah, we'll go forward to 86-17. So this is their second goal. It's just once again highlighting the perils in possession. And I've actually taken this back even further. And look, not trying to dig out Max, but this is a good example of we've got one of our better passes of the ball. I'll let it flow through so you can get a bit of a feel for the momentum of the game at this point in time. Comes over. Okay, now this ball from Isaac, I'll be honest with you, I'm not a massive fan of it because it's a lump into the middle of the field. If Excelsior get that, then we've got a bit of a problem because you're too far forward and they're going to turn and run through. It can be an easy ball through for a transitional moment, but it does. So my position there would be Isaac. You're good enough on the ball. You probably don't need to be. Look, it's a speculative pass, but anyway, he's looking for Max and he finds Max. Max manages to turn, and Max now drives. Now, what I'm saying in this point, okay, at this point in the attack, we are in attack, but what we need to be mindful of is controlling the ball and eliminating risk. In this situation in attack, we've got a 3v3 on one side of the goal, so we're doing all right. Okay, here's the Excelsior boys. Another one tracking across. So Benji's got some traffic. Francis, possibly offside, but anyway, who knows? So to me, the option here is to execute a pass to play Will through. Okay, that's the option in my opinion, and then we can get in behind. Will can get in behind. He can drive into the box. He can square the ball. He can cut back onto his right foot and shoot. Anyway, there's a whole lot of options. The problem that we've got here, and this is how look. I need you boys to start evolving your thinking. Um, because the problem you've got, and this is what to think about for the midfielder, in this case, it's Max. If you decide to drive to try to dribble through these two players and it doesn't come off, there is a lot of space in behind for them to exploit, and you create an opportunity, and you create a transitional moment. So this is what I talk about when I talk about, basically maintaining possession, and dominating the game possession wise. So I'll get rid of that. And we'll look. So Max decides not to pass to Will and decides to take the two of them on, decides to cut onto the inside. Um, okay, that's fine. It's a decision. It's a lower probability decision. Could have played Will through. And look, I'm not on the field at the time. I'm reviewing this via video. It could have been that it was on Max's wrong foot, which changes things. But we do need to be mindful because, on a transition, it transitions and we can be in a pickle. Bang, comes through, loses his footing, which doesn't help either. And Excelsior have won the ball, and they have a lot of space. Moreover, we can even see Isaac at centre back has actually been moving forward to support the attack. And now we have a problem because if we go one more space, this is similar to a goal that we've conceded before, isn't it? So we've got our centre backs. The problem is he's onside if he's in his half. This is right in this sweet zone where they had no, they had they. This colour's just not working. What am I going to make them? White? Can we see white? Can't really see white. Make it, black. Okay, got black. There you go. So this guy's here, and he's kicking long. You can see this guy. I think his name's Oscar. He's very fast, and he has a good finish. That makes him very dangerous in this situation. But he's been able to get a run up. Okay, he's been able to get a run up. Note we've had this transition means that we've got this yawning gap. Give me the line. Give me the free draw tool. We've got this yawning gap between our midfield attacking line and the back here. And this guy, it's probably not a bad look. It's probably, I mean, it ends up being a good pass. How deliberate it was, it's a different question. But the point of the story is this guy, he's onside because he's in his own half. Ball goes through. He's got Luke for pace, and he basically just skins both of our defenders. And that's a pretty good, pretty good. I've got a feeling. I got a feeling, judging by the result here, you were probably too close to your near post again, Mick. So because to be beaten on your outside at your far post, and that's crossover quite early. So I think it might be that we need to do some work with the angles. Um, because that's a shot that I'm thinking you're probably stopping. Having said that, if you stopped it and didn't grab it, which would be difficult, and couldn't parry it away, this guy's streaming through. So you can see basically how dangerous these transitional moments can be. And my point is, if we go back to the original decision, okay, on the pass on this, and this is what I keep, it's what I keep sort of talking about. Um, where was that? 86-17. So if we go back to the original decision, this is where just managing, just being in the game, it probably seems like a good thing to try to make the killer run or drive that killer pass. But if it's high risk, we need to weigh risk versus reward, because in this situation on the break, we need to make sure that we don't get hurt on transition. So I think that the better option would have been to pass to Will. Will can drive. Now, it may be he decides not to drive, in which case Max is still there to recover the ball. By that time, Riley can be involved. Luke Payne can come down and get involved, but we're more stable because we've maintained the possession. All right, so I'll put that down now. So in terms of managing transitional moments, I'll put an orange tick. We once again conceded twice, twice to transitional moments, um, which is frustrating. And they're very much avoidable. Having said that, we did score from a transitional moment, but the sooner we can get away from this sort of basketball style football, just this end to end to end stuff, the more stable we'll get, and the less goals we'll defend. I believe the more goals we will score because we will play through teams. Now, in terms of intensity from the first whistle, big green tick there. I was really happy with our intensity. I was also really happy with the noise that we were getting from the bench. I think that fired everyone up. Possibly times where it became a little bit over the top, but I mean, it's not as though we're playing a bunch of good guys, are we? So personally, I don't mind that. Like I'm 51. I was raised in an era where boys were allowed to be boys, so I really don't have a massive issue with that, as long as it doesn't become personal and it doesn't cross the line, the much coveted line. So moving through, again, playing through. So this is where we'll spend a little bit of time talking about possession. Um, so I'm going to I'll start it at 72, I reckon. No, that was 10. What are we doing? One, two, three. Just bear with me, boys. I'm just going through my points. Okay, yeah, look, I'm just going to take a little bit of no, I'll do that at the end. So we'll go to possession. So where's that start? Yeah, okay, we will start at 7. We'll start at 7. This is just talking about possession at the back. Um, so we've got to go to 74-40. We find ourselves doing this quite a bit, okay, because we face so many long balls. Mickey's asked to come forward and claim the ball quite a lot. One of the things that concerns me about this situation is he's drilling the ball into the middle of the pitch. This concerns me because we're not stable. By definition, we're recovering from them breaking on us. And with Mick driving it into the middle of the field, he probably doesn't have the range to get it well past halfway and completely out of danger. Okay, so here we are. They've played through. They've played up. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to Mick. So as soon as Isaac figures out that Mick's got the ball, in this situation, you kind of need to be doing one or two things. Now, it's a bit 50-50 as to whether Mick's actually going to get that. Um, so we've got Mick. I'll make Mick pink just because I can. So this is Mick, and then we've got Isaac. So one thing I'm asking is, the striker's always going to go for the ball, but is it possible in this situation? It's maybe a bit tight for Isaac to start wheeling away. Now, if Isaac wheels away, he may take the striker with him. Okay, but what he does is he opens himself up for the capacity for Mick to pass to him. Okay, and then we can play out. Okay, we can play out. We can dribble, or we can pass. But the point is, we've created that space. Um, so can we get better at that? Let's see how it rolls out. Okay, so Mick steps up and hits it. So this is my point. If we have more time, or if we're comfortable, can Isaac peel off and then Mick pass to him? Because in this situation, if we don't win the ball from this clearance, they've got a lot of space and a lot of time, and we don't have numbers back. Luke Payne's sort of jogging back. You probably need to be getting more involved there. Okay, so if they win this, like if they win this 50-50 ball, or if Riley doesn't control it, number 19 has got, and then, then they've got a 3v2 mix out of position, so the long shot comes into play. So my point is, it's quite unstable. At any point in time in these moments, I suppose what a good way to think about it is are we stable or are we unstable? Because in that situation, we're not stable. So Riley comes forward, claims the ball, and then we consolidate possession. So I was actually quite happy with how we consolidated the possession in the end, but that was all based on mixed clearance going to feet. The other problem is, what if it ricochets off the incoming striker? So we'll just now skip forward to 75:08, because the other thing is, you make it a bloody long game. Like, you make it a really long game if we're running end to end all the bloody time. So this is another option. This is another situation where we're talking about similar scenario, I believe, on the basis that I've got my okay. So once again, they're coming through. They've gone long ball because that's just how they play football. That's fine. So Mick. So ball goes to Mick. Now in this situation, as soon as the ball's going back to Mick, is this an opportunity where everyone else, obviously Zach is on the ball, so you're going to be trying to screen the striker to give him something other than a clean run. Okay. Um, but is this a situation where we can end up with Luke Payne dropping into this space, Zachy dropping out to give the width, and Isaac dropping out here to create the space, so that instead of just pumping it up the guts, we can end up with Mick having some passing options. Okay. So the goalkeeper has the options of passing here, and then we can potentially pass further. Does he have an option to go over to Luke Payne? But the point of the story is, can we manage possession, control the game, get stable again? Okay, so stabilize our formation, consolidate our possession, and then play out. Bang, because and look, he's got decent range on that, but it looks as though the midfielder is going to win this, and he does, and he just nods it into the middle of the pitch. Now we're fortunate because we've got fresh legs out there. This is 59-10. I'd not long put Francis on there. Riley's out there. Riley's very mobile, but if we turn the ball over, if we don't win that possession, then bang, they're onto us. So the question I'm asking is, can we be more of a football team in the way we play? So here we go. We're going to now go back a tiny bit. Now I like this. Isaac's on the ball. We've given him the call, and he looks and finds Zach. Zach gets the ball. Zach moves it up to Will. Now Will misses that ball in that situation. However, the point of the story is we've advanced the ball under control. We've got a 3v3 out wide there. So it presents us with better control, better options, better possession. All right. So now we're going to go through and we're going to roll. We're going to roll through from 72-20. Now, bearing in mind at this point in time, this game was really open. It was very end to end, which I think is the way Excelsior want to play, because they got a lot of bigger boys, fit, good athletes. So they love this end to end nonsense, and they've got some real speedsters. So the more open they can make the game, the more it suits them. And some of them have got some pretty good finishes on them as well. So in this situation, I'm going to argue that that's a bit of a poor option. You're just bombing it in. So we're better off in that situation looking for a run. So can Will give us a run to the flank, and then you can support that run? Can we find Ollie? But can we do something other than just bomb it on? And unfortunately, and this is what I'm saying, because we bombed it on, we are now unstable. If we look at the situation, and I'm not asking everybody to assess exactly where everyone is all the time, but if we're in possession and we're controlling the ball, but right now we've just turned it over, and there's a 2v2 up front because you can't see them yet, but Luke Payne and Zach are marking. So they're 2v2. You don't want to be 2v2 at the top. Isaac's effectively 2v2. This guy's going to turn. He's going to be on the ball, and he has options. He can dribble, or he can dribble and long ball. Okay. You probably don't need too much you don't need a spoiler on it to figure out what he's going to do. But my point is, it's like even you look at the quality of the pass is wobbly. It's going to be hard to control. It's going to be difficult to create a scoring opportunity from that. So let's just measure the passes and try to play and be more stable when we're in possession. We'll roll it out. He turns. What do you think he's doing? Oh, fuck. Tries to play through. That pass is a good example of why they don't try to play through, because they're just not very good at it. So that's 76-22. We played through that. 76-22. I just make sure I get my bearings. 27. We'll keep playing it through. Yeah, okay. Now this situation. So this is where I was talking about before. So we're going to back pass it to Mick. Mick's going to receive the ball somewhere or another. But my point is, in this situation, so we know that we're going to be turning over possession. So in this situation, we kind of want our centre backs to split. So Isaac, you need to be running into this space. Luke, you need to be staying there. Luke Payne, you need to be going out to that way. So we need to be basically trying to set up again, okay? Because we know that Mick's going to have the ball. So we need to be, and Zachy, you need to be getting over here, okay? So we just need to be setting up again. I know it's tired, and this is one of the other things with transitional football. If you're playing end-to-end shit, God, you end up tired. Like one of the reasons why people aren't tracking back is because they're bugging. Okay, they don't have it. We're 16 minutes into the half, but it's been up and back and up and back. It's just really unnecessary. So ball goes to Mick. So I mean that's like it's it's just not the football we want to play. Instead, in this situation, okay, from Mick, we're wanting to achieve a pass to Isaac, who's taking up a position here, to Zach, who's recovering to that position. So Zach's gone to here, Isaac's gone to there. They've only got one player who can get in our way, okay, which is this guy. So we do a pass, we go for it. So Mick passes to Isaac, and then Isaac can go to Zach. Worst comes to worst, you can just pass back to Mick and we can play out. Like, we are good enough to play out. We don't need to be playing this dog shit, end to end bullshit. Um, so, and once again, it goes up and bang, he's got a head on it. We're fortunate in that the ball goes to foot, but if it lands over here and this number five gets the ball and nods it on, it's we're not stable, we're not organised, we're all out of position. It's an example of how transitional moments can really, really sting you. The last two options, well, one is 3308. So I suppose what we're really hammering now is possession. Okay, I've fed into that with possession out from the back. So let's get that possession. And now I've just got a couple of examples. I am mindful of making these videos too long because I'm certain that if I make them too long, I just don't get the return that I would like. So we'll go to 3308. I'm so glad we've got a national broadband network. Okay. Yeah, so this situation, we've got Riley on the ball. Riley's one of our better passers. He's one of our fitter midfielders. But I think what Riley's going to do is he's going to try to pick a pass here for Will, maybe even Benji. It ends up not really being that good a pass for either of them. My suggestion is, can we, in this situation, can we not let the ball do the work? Ball to Griggsy, ball to Max. Max has then got options. Okay, so basically consolidate possession and build a game instead of the option which we end up taking, which is just and I understand what the attempt is. The attempt is to try to find Will in behind, but needs to be a much better pass to do that. and it just gets cut out. And now we've got a transitional moment because they just lump it forward. So my point is, can we be more stable? Because I would argue that we could get the ball to Will by going Griggsy, going Max. Max can drive, draw, and then we can then we can play Will through. We've also got Benji who we can involve. Okay, and I just think we can be more astute and more selective in our passing options. I'll let it roll through a tiny bit. Yeah, there you go. So into the middle, they win the ball in the middle of the pitch, and this is really dangerous because once again they're in their own half, so they're all on side. We're just lucky it's Kalen and Kalen's Kalen. So there we go. Then we go to 13, which is 29-32. Probably need to be nice to Kalen. We probably need to thank him for the foul that gave us the free kick, which allowed us to tie the scores late in the game. So one more. This is an example which I liked. I like the use of possession here. There's a difference between not being attacking and just valuing possession. All right. Like still be aggressive, still look for those killer passes. But, if it's a 10 percenter, so here you go. So Will's gone down. He's realized that he's got the player on him. He's got a play. He's got all the attackers are marked up, and they've got a centre back to cover off anything in the middle that doesn't work. So he plays it back to Francis. Okay. Francis plays it back to Will. Will retains the ball, drives in, wins a free kick. So my point is, let's just work on retaining possession. An option there could have been to dribble down and just try to lump it up no matter what was going on. But I'm very glad that Will didn't do it in that instance. So to finish off, shape, I actually thought off the ball, out of possession, our shape was good. We still have some work to do with our defensive long balls. We will be having a formation change after the break. Now, look, I believe that we know what we're doing with playing this formation. So I want to learn another formation because we need to have the ability to change. First of all, we need to be able to have the ability to easily change between formations when the game dictates that a new formation is necessary. We saw that against Lions. We were handing them their ass on a plate, and then they made a change, and it's just not a change that we could really adapt to. So it's a part of your football journey. And quite frankly, it doesn't make any sense for us to train you as an academy to play one formation. It just makes you too one-dimensional, and I don't want to do that to you boys. And the other thing is, quite frankly, teams, it's a long season, and if you do the same thing all season, teams will figure you out. So we need to continue evolving. We need to continue improving because in the under 16 age group, players determine whether or not they're going to have the capacity to transition to senior football or not. Boys, my next order is to order you to have a good restful weekend, have a good restful Easter break. We will not be training on Tuesday. I've canned that. We will come together on Thursday. We'll see who's there. If we don't have a large group, then we will just do position specific stuff. Okay, which can also be an opportunity. Can I ask you all to please put in your availabilities, and then on the basis of that, I'll decide what sessions we're going to run, and I can also plan a bit. Happy Easter, boys.